As he does every Monday on the show in the fall, is the fabulous Trevor Matich, ESPN College Football Insider and Analyst, BYU National Champion. He's here to accept us, or I guess let us go through the 5 levels of grief as we try and accept this BYU Boise State loss. Trevor, it's great to have you with us, albeit I wish BYU were still unbeaten.
You like his jersey?
I do like it. Dax Milne, Washington football team, huge catch against the Saints yesterday.
Let's go.
Absolutely. I like his sport and the colors there. That's good. And by the way, thank you for calling me fabulous, but I would just like to, in my professional humility, note that only my hair is truly fabulous.
Well, you are an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster. Okay, we can't even get a regional Emmy. You're getting a national Emmy, okay? The Jordan shrug. Jordan shoulder shrug.
Just a Jordan shrug.
93 finals.
Okay.
I'll let you say it, not me.
Fair enough. Trevor, we'll talk about Dax Milne in just a little bit, but first, let's get to BYU Boise State. The Cougars are -4 in turnover margin. It's hard to look beyond anything besides that as the reason they lost this game. What do you take away from the Broncos and Cougars as BYU falls to 5-1 on the season?
That, you look at how they lost. And it was mistakes that they are usually not making in games this year. I mean, this has been a very clean team. And it's been the turnovers against Boise, and it was the penalties, especially when the penalties happened. That's what cost them. There were other things that happened that you've got to give a lot of credit to Boise for, like their last touchdown drive. I mean, the plays that were made by Khalil Shakir, the receiver, and then the quarterback just making terrific throw. Those were great plays. When you look at the goal line stand, where BYU had the ball on the 3-yard line, I think, and they couldn't punch it in. They went for it on 4th down and didn't make it. That's good defense every bit as much as it might be something on BYU. But when you look at the turnovers, it was astonishing. And really, the fact that they hadn't lost a fumble all year made that first fumble just kind of borderline shocking. And Boise got the ball, punched it right in from inside the 25. Ensuing kickoff, BYU fumbles again. Boise gets the ball inside the 25, punch it in for a touchdown. And those were the only 2 touchdowns that Boise scored. And I think that's important to remember, because as bad as this feels, and the fact that it is a loss, as disjointed as BYU seemed to be at times, they still outplayed Boise State for the most part on both sides of the ball, except for those key mistakes.
Yeah, and those ended up costing BYU the game, as we've talked about. So we look at the first 6 games, and now it's obvious that because BYU took care of the ball and was able to force a couple of turnovers, they were able to win some games that maybe if the margins even, who knows, maybe BYU doesn't win those games. So margin really matters in this one. And now BYU is going to Baylor, a team that's high-flying, and obviously the connection with Jeff Grimes and Eric Mateos. BYU is going to have to take care of the ball in this one and perhaps even be positive in margin to win it. It's another big game for BYU, who still have a lot to play for, it feels like.
But see, that's part of the way that good teams play. They don't miss assignments. They hold on to the ball. They don't commit too many penalties that are, dumb penalties, false starts and things like that for the most part. And BYU won in part because they're a good team, and that's what good teams do. So I look at this more as a anomaly than I do that BYU had to have the turnovers to win the games that they had. That's why they won the games. I mean, look at Alabama, for goodness sake. Against Texas A&M, they lost because of a parade of missed assignments. And that's not Alabama. It's not how they play, but that's how they played that day. And so it's not unique to BYU. And we've talked all year during this winning streak about how these are tough teams to beat. I mean, even Utah State, tough team to beat. They've got a really, really good offense. And that BYU fans can think about undefeated season because that's really fun. But about the players and the coaches be focused on the task at hand, because there's still a lot of tricky games going forward that they could lose if they don't play clean. Baylor is running the ball really well. They're throwing the ball fine. They've got a very aggressive defense, one of the best defensive mind trusts in all of college football. And you mentioned Jeff Grimes, the former BYU offensive coordinator, and Eric Mateos, former offensive line coach. These are guys that know this BYU defensive scheme intimately because they practiced against it. They were in meetings with the coaches talking about it, about what works, what doesn't, what they hope defenses don't do. And more importantly, if things aren't working, what will be the adjustments that the defense of BYU will make? And so that throws a lot of questions into game planning going forward. And will they get more complex, BYU, during the week? I kind of think they'll just do what they do best and force Baylor to beat them. But if they're going to force Baylor to beat them, they need to be holding on to the football and not committing penalties.
Trevor Matich of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. So I'm looking across Twitter and the national pundits after BYU's lost to Boise State. Brett McMurphy, Chris Vanini, among others, Pete Thamel, all kind of in agreement now that, well, BYU lost a game, so New Year's Six potential is totally out of the reality. And I'm looking at what BYU has remaining in the schedule and thinking, okay, if BYU, hypothetically speaking, went 6-0 on the back six and had a 7-0 record against Power 5 teams, would they really be out of any New Year's Six consideration? Trevor, where do you stand in that conversation?
You know, Spencer, this crazy season leaves nothing out of the question with just one loss. Nothing. I mean, who'd have thought that Clemson would not be ranked, right, in the month of October, which was the case in the most recent AP poll. I didn't look today, but that's the case. Who'd have thought that? That's crazy. Who would have thought that Alabama would have had so many missed assignments that would have lost at an unranked Texas A&M? It's crazy stuff. And so we're in a year where there's a lot of chaos up at the top. And a lot of those teams at the top still have to play each other. BYU still has, 4 or 5 Power 5 teams yet to play. They have to go to Baylor. They have to go to USC. They have to play Washington State and Virginia. Those are all tough outs. And speaking from a big picture standpoint, if they win all of those games, they might be able to get back up into the top 12. And that's not out of the question. And once again, that's for fans to think about. It's reasonable to expect that BYU is good enough to pull it off if they play clean every single game. But from a standpoint of the players and coaches, that's not something that they are thinking about in any way. They're thinking about Baylor and Baylor only.
You almost wonder if there's some middle ground, because to go from New Year's Six possibility to Independence Bowl, that seems like a massive gap there. But in terms of motivation, obviously being independent, BYU's kind of used to, okay, once we lose once, the season's kind of different. But it feels like because of this schedule, and you mentioned it, 7 Power 5s, there'd still be a chance, it feels like. Like if BYU's sitting there at 12th and undefeated except for the Boise State game, maybe they got a shot. But like you said, it's going to be tough. So what do you anticipate this team can do in the back half of the season now that we've hit the midway point?
I think, well, can they win out? The answer is yes. They can win out. They have a chance to beat every team left on their schedule. I was worried about Boise State. I'm very worried about Baylor. But BYU needs to play like they played in the first 5 games, which is to say on top of their game. It will help that Jaren Hall now is a game back from his injury. He didn't really look like himself in this game. He didn't cost them this game. He did a lot of really good things, and BYU outgained Boise State by quite a bit. But Jaren Hall didn't look like the Jaren Hall that we knew from earlier in the season. And I think that was partly because he's coming back from that injury, didn't have the practice that he needed to have. And I think it might have still bothered him a little bit because against Boise, we didn't see him take off and run as often or as explosively as we've seen him when he's healthy. And so another week now might allow him to elevate that quarterback position. And that will be key to winning this game. It will also be key that they will have to get the passing game going because the running game is going to be awfully tough to lean on against Baylor. They have a pretty stout defense. They'll still try to run. They'll still pound it, but it'll be a little bit tough. So if they get past Baylor, then what happens? Well, then they get a little bit more healthy. Some guys on defense are getting more healthy. You've got James Empey with another game under his belt. You've got Jaren Hall, hopefully stays healthy and it's a little bit better. And all of a sudden, we might be able to see this team get back to the peak of what they were capable of earlier in the season, or at least closer to it. Losing Keenan Peely at linebacker is always going to be really, really bad. And that's something we always need to remember about this team and how they're overcoming that for the most part. But, what are they capable of? They're capable of winning every game, each individual game, but only if they play at their best and they start to get some people back from injury.
Trevor Matich of ESPN on BYU Sports Nation. Let's focus in a little bit more on Baylor and specifically what you brought up, the connection that Baylor has to BYU with former offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes and former offensive line coach Eric Mateos. Fans are very interested in how that might create an advantage for Baylor and knowing what Jeff Grimes is likely to do as an offensive coordinator, how that might create an advantage for the BYU defense. Is it a wash, Trevor? Who has an advantage in this scenario of being very familiar with each other because you've exchanged some coaches?
Baylor has the advantage, and it's an important advantage. A lot of people think that when coaches or players go to a team that you now have to play against, it's all about the calls. You'll make a call, you'll call an audible, and they'll know exactly what you're doing. They'll know what the hand signals are. The problem is the defense can't rely on those signals and those audibles and things because they've got to figure that you're going to change them. And then at the key moment, you're going to call red, which normally means we're going to run the ball to the right. And you end up throwing a screen to the left just to fool them while they all take off to what they thought the call was going to be. So as a defense, you can't really rely on those calls. What gives them an advantage is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of individual players. Offensive linemen, for example. You know, if you know from practice that an offensive lineman has a problem with this particular move, you coach your guy to make that move all the time. I had a move that I couldn't stop the entire national championship year, a pass rush move. And it was one of the guys in the practice squad figured this out. And, man, I could never stop him. It was a half spin. So I'm playing center, and I put my hands up. He spins. I slide in front of that spin, but it's a half spin. He spins back the other way really fast. And I was never able to stop that move. And I was just hoping that nobody figured that out in the games, right? And nobody did figure that out in the games. And in the NFL, nobody did that either. So good thing that guy wasn't playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And so this is where the advantage lies, because now those guys will know what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and how they can attack individual players. They can look at defensive backs, for example, and they can say, okay, if you stem your route a little bit inside, as soon as you see him turn your hips like this, his hips, you know exactly what he's going to do and where he'll be vulnerable, and you cut over here, right? And they can build pass patterns like those things. They can tell quarterbacks what to look for to know which guy's going to be open before he normally would. So these are advantages that they can have. How effective will it be during the game? That remains to be seen, because in college, you only have 20 hours in the week to be able to coach guys. In the NFL, you've got unlimited hours. You can get all that stuff in. So a lot of it will depend on how the Baylor players are able to assimilate that and execute it in the game.
Okay, Spencer's wearing the jersey, so we got to ask. People don't know. For those who don't know, you also cover the Washington football team with some, coverage there in Washington. So Dax Milne, first catch in the NFL, draws a pass interference call as well. How is he developing as a receiver for Washington?
They love Dax Milne. He got to play in this game a little bit more because of injuries at the receiver and tight end position. And so he was able to show what he showed in the preseason. In the preseason, when he had his opportunities, he made really good catches. He was reliable in being where he was supposed to be, when he was supposed to be there. Good on special teams, energetic blocker when he didn't have the ball, all these things. So he has to go in and play against the Saints, and he gets the ball thrown his way, and he makes a fantastic catch on the boundary. And so doing that, coaches and quarterbacks will say, yeah, okay, well, gee, if we need to throw the ball to Dax, that's probably not a bad idea. And so little things like that are stepping stones. Drop that ball or just be a little bit out of bounds, and they don't have that positive validation. So I think Dax Milne is a complete football player. If you could add one more thing to it, you can take a tenth or two off of his 40 time. Either way, he's so precise in the way he runs routes that they know he is reliable, he is dependable. And that's why he made the team when some other guys that reporters in D.C. thought would make it ahead of him did not.
All right, as much as I want to keep talking about Dax Milne because he's my guy, Trevor, we do need to get a big picture question in about college football overall. The Cincinnati Bearcats are the first team in the history of the college football playoff era to have a top 4 ranking since we instituted that back in 2014. They're number 3. Alabama loses. Georgia's the new number 1. Iowa's number 2 after beating Penn State. What's happening at the top tiers of college football?
It's nuts, Spencer. It's just completely nuts. Georgia is epic. I mean, their defense has a chance to be legendary. Alabama, we've seen some of the flaws that they've had. I mean, against better opponents this year up until Ole Miss, they were okay in the trenches. They weren't dominant in the trenches. Then they dominated Ole Miss, and I thought the Bama factor was back. Then they ran into a team that shouldn't have done what they did to them. Texas A&M has a solid defense. Their offense not that good, but their offense looked like the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs against the Alabama defense. So teams that you expect to do well aren't. Clemson came into this season with one of the best defenses in the country, an offense that would be a work in progress. Well, the mistake there was that the offense isn't a work in progress. It's not working at all in any way. Right? Iowa at number 2, championship caliber defense, okay offense, not a great offense. So even number 2 is not fully complete. I like Cincinnati better than I like Iowa. And so Oklahoma, same way. Oklahoma's number 4, but Oklahoma's got all kinds of problems still on both sides of the ball.
Yes.
And so this is why there's so much chaos up at the top right now. The usual suspects that at this point are pulling away from everybody else for the 4 playoff spots are Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, right? Those are the teams. And except for Georgia, every one of those teams is showing deep flaws right now, which opens the door for a lot of other teams.
Love it. Love the chaos. Give me more of it. Trevor Matich breaking it down better than anyone else can. We appreciate the time, Trevor. He is an Emmy Award-winning national analyst. You want to give us another Jordan shrug?
There you go. and you know what, Spencer? You got to get out to send Dax Mills' jersey back because he's got to go to practice.
I'll throw it in the mail right now. Thanks, Trevor.
Sign it for him, though. Sign it for him.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
ESPN's Trevor Matich with us on BYU Sports Nation.